Welcome back, fight fans, to another episode of Ringside. In today's episode, I will be counting down the top 10 heavyweights through the beginning of 2025. Let's get started. At number 10, I have Filip Hergovich. Currently, he is 32 years old with a record of 17 wins, 14 knockouts, and 1 loss. And that 1 loss being in his most recent fight against Daniel Dubois. His most notable wins are Zhang and Dempsey McKean. And out of all the individuals he has on his record, these are really the 2 standout wins. But the win over Zhang puts him much higher than many of the heavyweights in today's landscape. And considering individuals like Joe Joyce, Anderson, Pulev, Huney, and White are all relatively unproven, individuals like Otto Wallin and Hunter, I believe, are all lower than him, considering that Hergovich has a win over Zhang, which I think is much greater than some of the fights of the heavyweights I just mentioned before Hergovich. In my number 9 spot, I have Derek Chisora. Now, this is a very surprising pick, but in some ways, when one just looks at his most recent fights, or most recent fight really, it's not a very surprising pick. He beat Joe Joyce, dropped him in the 6th round, and outboxed him. Now, this Joe Joyce is one that seemed to be at the back end of his career, and I believe Joyce probably may not even fight again. But nonetheless, it is a notable win considering the only other person to actually beat Joyce is Zhang, and considering Chisora showed a great championship heart and the will to strive forward in the fight with Joyce, showed his resilience, and I believe he can still relatively be a threat to any heavyweight that lays in the top 30 or top 20. And so I have Chisora at number 9. At number 8, I have Zhang. Now, Zhang was beaten by Hergovich, but Zhang has had many more championship level fights than Hergovich has. He lost to Filip Hergovich, but even his lower level names on his record are better than Hergovich's, such as Andrei Rudenko, Scott Alexander, and Jerry Forrest. Now, he did have a draw with Jerry Forrest, but after that draw, he improved to a fighting method that would cater toward his stamina. But he does have 2 wins over Joe Joyce. Joyce was believed to be someone with a masterful chin, and Zhang was able to knock him down in both fights. Well, in the first fight, Zhang gave him a black eye, but Zhang currently has a win over Deontay Wilder and a majority decision loss to Joseph Parker. At our number 7 spot, I have Anthony Joshua. Now, this may be a controversial pick considering it's Anthony Joshua, but previously to his Dubois fight, I had him as the number 3 best heavyweight in the world. Post his Dubois fight, I believe he will probably struggle with most top 10 heavyweight contenders and maybe some top 15 heavyweight contenders. But currently in the landscape right now, I don't completely think Joshua is finished with the sport, and I believe he is well deserving of a position in the top 10. And so in my number 6 spot, I have Martin Bakole. So Bakole is a heavyweight who I believe has a great amount of potential. His resume is not as good as some of the heavyweights on this list. It's certainly better than Hergovich's and relatively similar to Zhang's. But I believe he's more of a threat than Zhang, considering he's much younger than Zhang and hits very hard. Bakole only has 1 loss to Michael Hunter, a loss in which he did have a shoulder injury, and he did last nearly the full fight, and Hunter KO'd him in the last few seconds of that fight. But Bakole has nice wins over Tony Yoka, Carlos Takam, and most recently Jared Anderson. Now, Anderson is a pretty good fighter, considering he's only 25, and although he lost to Bakole, he did knock out Jerry Forrest in 2 rounds, something Zhang could not do. And even though Zhang is old, Jared Anderson's wins are pretty notable in the lower ranks, so I believe a win over Jared Anderson was a very big win for Bakole. So in my number 5 spot, I have Joseph Parker. Now, between Joseph Parker and Agit Cabel, who's at my number 4 spot, I believe they could probably be interchanged, but considering the fact that Agit Cabel has slightly better wins. Now, I believe a unanimous decision against Wilder is okay, and Zhang's fight against Wilder, he knocked him out in 5 rounds. But then again, Wilder is not exactly the best heavyweight in the world. And although I do credit Zhang for beating Wilder earlier, a win against Wilder, who is currently at best a top 30 heavyweight, is relatively okay in my opinion. But he does have a majority decision over Zang Dong, which definitely puts him higher than the rest of the heavyweights on this list. And considering the experience Parker has as a heavyweight and his youth, I believe he sits well at number 5. At my number 4 position, I have Agit Cabel. Cabel currently has a record of 25 wins, 0 losses, 0 draws. He is 32 years old, and he has notable wins against a much fresher and much better Derek Chisora back in 2017. He has a win over Andrei Rudenko, Kevin Johnson, Arsembek Makimov, and Frank Sanchez. Now, Sanchez is a pretty good heavyweight to have on one's record, but considering Cabel was able to beat Chisora, a much fresher Chisora, and although that was a majority decision, him still beating Chisora back then is a magnificent feat considering Chisora was able to knock down Joyce. And considering Chisora has a great amount of longevity within his career, I believe that win is a notable one. And a stoppage of Sanchez was something I did not think would happen. And a stoppage and a domination of Sanchez shows that I believe he may be able to contend equally with someone like Joseph Parker. But I believe Cabel and Parker could be interchanged. At my number 3 spot, I have Daniel Dubois. Now, this is because although Daniel Dubois was able to destroy Anthony Joshua, his performance against Alexander Usyk was much worse than Fury in both fights. Now, Usyk made Dubois quit, but Fury is an individual who has true championship heart and very good recuperative abilities in the ring. And so I believe that Daniel Dubois is slightly lower in my rankings, even though he is a champion right now. Fury does not have too much left in the tank, but Fury definitely has the potential of actually becoming a world champion again, dependent on the right circumstances. His last performance against Usyk was a clear loss, but it was a very good performance by Fury, one of his best, I believe. And so I have to put Daniel Dubois at 3, and at my number 2 position, I have Fury. And as I said, Fury is performed very well against Alexander Usyk in their second bout. Clear loss, but still a loss. Still a great performance by Fury. And so, obviously, at my number 1 position, we have Alexander Usyk. He is currently the unified heavyweight champion, the lineal and ring heavyweight champion. And so he is a rightful king of the division. He has 2 wins over Tyson Fury, 2 wins over Anthony Joshua, 1 win over Daniel Dubois, and 1 win over Derek Chisora. These are all heavyweights that are still in my top 10 list currently. And so, considerably, Usyk has a very good top 10 heavyweight record as it stands. And so, if Usyk doesn't retire, and considering we have no word of Usyk's retirement at this point, I believe Usyk is the best in the division. Now, if Usyk was to retire, Tyson Fury, I believe, would actually be the best in the division still. But currently, Usyk definitely is the best. Well, that does it for this episode of Ringside. What do you think are the top 10 heavyweights of the world today? Let me know in the comments. This is Zachary Cloutier at Ringside.